There was really the sense of cultivation and kind of what does it mean to be an educated person. And so, as you said, it's striking, I think, to the modern eye how much of Jefferson's list was fiction. So it wasn't all kind of improving nonfiction or political philosophy. There was a real sense that fiction, Don Quixote, Tom Jones, Pamela, and a lot of less familiar works. So, for instance, Peregrine Pickle, Memoirs of Miss Sydney Biddulph, these are sort of in the fringes of literary history. And I think the other thing I would note too is this isn't just a Jefferson story. So lots of other members of the founding generation were really, really deeply kind of immersed in reading literature and thought of it not as a kind of guilty pleasure, but as something that was part of their intellectual process. And this included women as well. So John and Abigail Adams were both so steeped in Tristram Shandy, this massive doorstop novel. And throughout their letters for their entire lives, they would refer to people as characters in Tristram Shandy. And this is, of course, in addition to Abigail Adams, John Adams, and others taking on pseudonyms from the classics. So it's just this whole worldview about none of this being sort of outside the political realm, but actually very much a part of the political realm that I think is really fascinating.
One of the big functions of American literature in the periods after the founding has been to call into question, who are we the people, right? So who is this people, and who's included and who's not included in the people that are the people of the Constitution or the people of the Declaration. And this is true in the late 19th century. There are a lot of interesting works on kind of citizenship and literature in the late 19th century. Brooke Thomas has written about this extensively, but then it carries over into, I think, our contemporary literary scene. So I would point to work like Cynthia Rankine's Citizen, which explicitly calls us to think about, who is a citizen, and deals with questions of race and racial division within America, and sort of brings to the forefront this issue of who is included. And also the poem Declaration by U.S. Poet Laureate Tracy K. Smith, which is this extremely interesting poem involving, it's an erasure poem, which means that you take the words of a text verbatim, but you erase parts of it to make a different poem. And it's an erasure poem of the Declaration of Independence that then turns it into a poem about enslavement and then the contemporary legacies of slavery.
Huck Finn, yes. Huck leads civilization. Why? It's uncomfortable. His father is a drunk and beats on him. He gets no protection. And he's been taken in by a widow, but she forces him to bathe, forces him to go to school. He doesn't want to do that, so he lights off down the river. What happens on the river is that he and then the escaped slave Jim get attacked because they have no protection. Huck has conventional opinions. So when he decides to defend Jim and not to turn him in, he's going against his conscience as he understands it. And he decides famously that he'll be damned, but he's going to stay with Jim. Yet in the very controversial end of the novel, Huck and Jim go back. They meet up with Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer knows that Jim has been legally freed, but he doesn't tell Jim, and they go through all these antics. So the only thing that works to free Jim is the law, but Huck can't live comfortably with the law. So we got, yes, the law, the will frees Jim. That secures his freedom, but Huck, who loves Jim, doesn't like civilization, and so he lights out for the territory, as Mark Twain himself or Samuel Clemens lighted out for the territory as described in Roughing It. And actually that's a theme of Ralph Ellison. He writes about going to the territory of Oklahoma. It's the frontier. It's where you're not regulated. And so there is this theme persistently in American literature of how human beings, or particularly Americans, resist the law and how you justify the kind of restraints the law places on you.